Hello, YouTube and Wooper Club fans. Fruit Taco here, coach of the Route 1 Burbs, bringing you another feature match from WCL Season 13. This week we have the Calgary Corviknights versus the Kanto Kinglers. Corviknights been having an incredible season here, shot their way up to #1 on the power rankings recently, and this, for a feature match, this is a little bit surprising to have. We have the first ranked team up against the 10th ranked team, but if it's getting featured, it's gotta be a good match. And to help me go through it, I actually have the coach of the Calgary Corviknights, Mr. Just Greggles, here with me today. How's it going?
It's going great. I am really excited to be here. Thanks so much for having me on. I really enjoyed this match. I think it has a lot of potential. You mentioned that I hit my first week as #1 in the power rankings here, and this is against a team that when I first got a high ranking in last season's power rankings, I went up against the Kanto Kinglers the next week, and they completely upset me. So I was looking forward to this match as a chance to sort of certify my bona fides as a competitive player in this league.
All right, well, with that, let's get into this match and see if another shakeup occurs. Okay, so the Corviknights are Iron Valiant, who cannot Terra, Thunderous Incarnate, who cannot Terra, Revavroom, Rotom-Mow, Girafarig, Tatsugiri, Regidrago, Dreadnought, Skeledirge, who can't Terra, and Scizor, who can't Terra, and Diancie. They're going up against the Kinglers with Barraskewda, Salazzle, Zapdos, who can't Terra, Landorus Therian, who can't Terra, Cresselia, who can't Terra, Mabostiff, Morgrem, Komala, Ditto, Toxapex, who can't Terra, and Glastrier. Just kind of taking a look at these two teams, the Kinglers have the advantage in terms of speed as far as I can see. They've got the 1st, 2nd, 5th, and 6th fastest mons in the matchup. However, the Corviknights have a lot of ways to kind of get around that. Prankster, Quark Drive, Shell Smash, Dragon Dance, they could actually upset that speed pretty easily. So while the Kinglers have it on paper, not sure how it'll end up in the match. Just kind of looking at what looks good for the Corviknights, though, 3 rock weaknesses and no resists on the other side means Dreadnought is looking absolutely insane. Impidimp also the only dragon resist, so Regidrago also looking absolutely incredible. Landorus is the only electric resist for Rotom and Thunderous, volt switching around. Valiant has coverage for the only fairy resists. This looks like a pretty great offensive matchup here for the Corviknights. We could potentially see some hazard play, maybe even spikes to specifically wear down the regenerating Pex switching in and out, although the Cress, Landorus, and Zapdos would be immune to them, but 3 layers of spikes, 25% off of a Toxapex anytime it comes in, could be big. What did you think of kind of your team looking at this matchup? Anything stand out to you?
Yeah, so I definitely agree with you about the speed tier situation here. One of the things that I was really looking into as I was preparing for this was how to navigate that Barraskewda and Salazzle at the top. The Salazzle doing a great job to stop some of my setup mon with, a free toxic against whoever it wants, thanks to Corrosion. So I was really looking at figuring out how to get around those high speed tiers, as well as noticing that the Komala on the Kinglers was the only hazard removal. So I was looking into a couple of different options. I didn't want to go Toxic Spikes just because of the 2 free removers, especially with that Toxapex switching in and out pretty easily. And so I chose to go with Stealth Rock just to pick up some of the rock weaknesses, as you mentioned, no resists. And that Dreadnought, the Shell Smash, was definitely coming to this match with some really good coverage options as well. Those were some of the big pieces that I was looking at. There were a couple of other options. There are 2 Intimidate Mon on the Kinglers with the Landorus and the Mabostiff. And so a funny Defiant set on Thunderous was in the cards. A couple of different ways that I saw working with this team But yeah, definitely the big one was how to navigate that speed sort of tier situation where I felt disadvantaged in this matchup.
All right, and looking over on the Kingler side, they're looking at, 4 ground weaknesses with 2 immunities on the side of the Corviknights, means that Landorus could potentially be very big in this match depending on what comes. Ditto, of course, is very influential in this matchup. We talked about the Corviknights having several setup mons. Ditto being able to copy all of that setup and go for a reverse sweep, very big. The only thing I think the Pex, Toxapex and Cresselia in this matchup look very good defensively, but I think they're going to be carrying a lot of weight trying to sponge all of the hits from the breakers on the side of the Corviknights. So we'll have to see how well those can kind of sponge all those out, but I think those will be big players for the Kinglers for sure. Greg, what did you was there anything on the Kingler side that stood out to you in this matchup that you were kind of prepping for specifically outside of speed?
Definitely. The Landorus looks really good against my team. As you mentioned, 4 ground weaknesses on my team, including a big 4x weakness on Rev of Room. So there was definitely a lot that I was worried about with the Landorus, especially because the 2 Mon that I have that outspeed the Landorus, namely Iron Valiant and Thunderous, don't look super threatening against the Landorus. As we'll see, the Iron Valiant does have a coverage move that can threaten it, but was not really expecting the Landorus to go to feel particularly threatened by the Mon that I had that were faster than it, and so I fully expected to see a band or some sort of setup that would just tear through the team that I put together.
Sure.
I guess also Ditto is one of my least favorite Pokemon to go up against. It's really wreaked havoc on some of my teams in the past. And so there was a lot of care put into some of my team construction when it came to Ditto proofing some of the things, watching out for, it copying my setup, as you mentioned, because a lot of my team has been reliant on setup so far.
Yeah, Ditto, always a tricky one. But yeah, I think I would give you the edge in this matchup. I think you just have, you just got more straightforward pieces that work more simply. I think the Kinglers might need to make some good predictions, have some good tech on some of those bulky mons to kind of even out that matchup where you can just kind of throw Valiant and Drago at it and just kind of click buttons. How confident were you going into this matchup? Did you kind of agree that you had the edge?
Yeah, I think so. I felt really good about my Regidrago set. I thought that there was not much that he was going to be able to do about that outside of a Terra Fairy. I didn't see the Morgrim coming as a very serious possibility. So I felt like I had a couple of different sort of unique plays that I hadn't brought so far this season. And, his lack of hazard removal, along with I didn't see too many hazards coming on his side of the team. So my lack of hazard removal wasn't going to be too much of a hindrance. Felt like I had the edge. But of course, this ended up being a very close match.
Sure. Well, speaking of that Drago set, let's just get into looking at the teams, and we'll start off with what you brought. And here we are with your 6 Mons. It's your team. I'm just gonna hand it off to you. Let me know. Tell everyone what you brought.
Yeah, so we'll start off with that Iron Valiant, who was a big pickup for my team, costing a whole 40 Whoop bucks in the auction. But I am really pleased with how it fits against a lot of other teams, especially its defensive profile and resisting a lot of priority that my opponents could bring. So for this particular match, I chose to bring a Scarf on it. I thought that was really important to improve, again, that speed matchup at the top. I'm bringing enough speed to outspeed that Barraskewda, and sort of trying to, have this serve as a really potent revenge killer after I get some chip. So I went with the Scarf instead of the booster energy because I did see this as a revenge killer rather than a sweeper. So that Scarf sort of lets me switch it in and out and maintain that speed tier that I really need throughout the match. I'm bringing it as a special attacker this week. I think that the Kinglers profile defensively is actually very balanced. I think they have very few mon with base defensive stats being almost equal on just about all of their mon. So the biggest gap that I'm seeing is on the Mabostiff with a base defense of 90 and special defense of 70. And I guess that Komala with a base defense of 65 and special defense of 95. Everything else is extremely even. So, but also leaning slightly in the defensive side of things rather than the specially defensive side. So I went with the Iron Valiant to sort of as the special attacker there, especially because it got that Icy Wind coverage move. That is only coming because of the Landorus, but it is a near Oko coming from, again, this sort of Scarfed Mon that's pretty much guaranteed to outspeed it, and from a Landorus that doesn't have I don't think it has a priority move that it can bring back to threaten out that Icy Wind. So that Icy Wind was big. Psychic is coming to cover the two worrisome poison types. So there, of course, is the Toxapex that is looming big. Need some way to damage that, and that's going to be a theme throughout this whole set. And the Salazzle as well, of course, being a 4x fairy resist. And then the Moonblast and the Focus Blast to bring some solid stab moves. The Focus Blast I brought sort of with an eye on Glastrier, who I was a little bit worried about as well, being just so bulky and so hard hitting, with ice being somewhat of a problem for my team, as well as a big heavy slam that it could bring against the 4x steel weakness in Diancie. So the Iron Valiant set here has a lot of different moving parts. I'm pretty pleased with how it worked out for this match.
Yeah, no, I agree. Great set here. I think the Scarf versus Booster Energy is always an interesting conversation to have. I certainly experienced it last season with Iron Moth, where I preferred the Scarf because it just meant I felt freer to actually use it in the match rather than looking for, kind of the perfect opportunity to pop the Booster Energy. Yeah, kind of only critique I have on this set is that Focus Blast. Makes sense for the Glastrier, but, going over something like the more reliable Aura Sphere or even something like Scarfed Destiny Bond can be very cool. But I certainly understand the Focus Blast into the Glastrier and just going, for the strongest stab option you've got on a Revenge Killer. Can't go wrong with that.
Yeah, it's definitely a tough choice to balance that. And there were enough times where I felt like, maybe I would need a little luck to be on my side if I wanted to pull out a win here. So I went with the slightly riskier play that I thought might have a bigger payout.
Sure, you'll never hear me shy away from moves that can miss. So next
Uh-huh.
up, let's talk about the Rotom.
Yeah, so the Rotom is going to be my primary Landorus counter here. The Levitate is really excellent against that Earthquake. It doesn't have a ton of moves that can threaten this Rotom, and I'm bringing some status on it as well to Will-O-Wisp that Landorus, also to possibly threaten the Mabostiff, and maybe even get a burn in on that Barrascuda, who doesn't, again, have a ton that it can threaten the Rotom with outside of Ice Fang. So it's a physically bulky set here, also picking up the light screen to sort of balance out its matchup against the Cresselia and the Zapdos. So it's got a couple of different pieces here, largely serving as, again, that Landorus counter to really try to get that burn in on it, because I need to cripple that thing. But it also has Leaf Storm for some nice coverage. It hits pretty hard, regardless of, sort of the mon that might be going up against it, and the Volt Switch to just sort of, get the free slow pivot into whatever I'm sort of looking at.
Sure. Yeah, the only thing I like the physically defensive sit going up against the Landorus. I do think the light screen is interesting on it. Certainly, it's good utility, but something like Thunderbolt, just to hit Pex without having to switch out, I think is something I would have expected. But the light screen certainly could have its uses in the matchup. My first thought looking at it was, why light screen over reflect? I feel like the Barraskewda and physical things are scarier, but we will find out later that you are bringing reflect. It's just on a different mon, which is
Exactly.
very fun. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, there's definitely some question here about whether or not I should have put reflect on the Rotom versus and the light screen on the Diancie or vice versa. I ended up choosing to go this way. I don't think that was something that I put too much hard thought into at the beginning of the match. Thought that each would be useful. I hadn't brought screens yet this season, so I didn't think that Kanto would be really seeing those as playing a large role in this match. So I thought that would be a nice way of picking up an edge. And whether which one gets which is 6 one way, half a dozen the other.
Sure. But let's move on to Regidrago. Probably, it's hard to say between it and Dreadnought, but I probably say the Drago has been the standout of your team this season. What are you bringing on it this week?
Yeah, so this Regidrago is a really important piece in this matchup, especially given that there is only one fairy on the opposing side, and it's the Morgrim that I didn't really expect to come. So this is going to be my planned lead, with Dragon Energy being the main damaging move that I'm bringing. I specifically set up the Choice Scarf and the Speed to outspeed that Salazzle. And then the rest of the moveset was devoted towards being able to just put out tons of damage with that Dragon Energy. So I believe that Dragon Energy from full health, 2-hit KOs most everything, or 1-hit KOs. Actually, I think it 2-hit KOs everything, and then 1-hit KOs most everything. So that is going to be a key part of my opening strategy. And from there, I've got Draco Meteor as a backup option once my HP starts getting low. Earth Power to threaten out that Toxapex, because that is a really frustrating wall. And then Terra Steel, Terra Blast as a way to threaten any Terra Fairies that Kanto might be bringing, because again, those can be kind of frustrating, but I want to have some way of dealing with it. So this is kind of my backup Terra candidate compared to the Dreadnought. It's something that I'm keeping in mind depending on how Kanto chooses to respond to this Regidrago. The other thing that I want to highlight about this Regidrago is the stat spread. So, of course, I have the speed to outspeed Salazzle and the full special attack together with Modest to get as much damage out as I can. But I had these 60 EVs left over that I wanted to do something with. And one of the lessons that I picked up last season from watching one of the Newport Noctowls videos about our matchup was that EVs make a much bigger difference in stats that are low for their baseline rather than stats that are high for their baseline. So I was surprised when he put a lot of EVs into Forretress's special defense. But that really makes a big difference when that baseline is so low. So here, Regidrago's base defense is only 50 compared to its base HP of 200. And so putting those 60 EVs in defense makes a much bigger difference for its defensive profile and survivability than it does putting those EVs into HP.
Sure. Regidrago, I think this is a great set. The Terra Steel on it, of course, being great because you can hit a Terra Fairy if it shows up. And of course, you also resist your usual dragon weaknesses. So this is pretty just great. I think the choice of going after the outspeeding max speed Salazzle is interesting. Not going a little faster, chasing that Barraskewda, but I think it makes a lot of sense. We'll just have to see kind of how that plays out in the match. But
Definitely.
kind of going from we've started off with a bunch of your special mons. Let's finally get into some physical offense here.
Yeah, definitely. So Dreadnought, as we mentioned in the previous slide, was a big part of this because there are no rock resists on the opposing team. So I'm going to be bringing Dreadnought. Chose to go Rock Slide for something that is a little bit more accurate, especially after that Shell Smash. It still hits really hard, so we are watching out for that. Going to bring Liquidation as the water move. Nice threat to Landorus again. And then Earthquake as that final move to, again, worry about that Toxapex that is going to be so consistently, in the way of everything that I want to do. So we've got these sort of 3 damaging moves that get really great coverage. We're bringing a full speed set on this Dreadnought so that we can sort of get as much, make sure that we're going first as much as we can. The Expert Belt is there to produce a lot of extra damage against a lot of the pieces that we threaten. Again, especially that Toxapex, especially the Landorus. So watching out for some of those. It was a choice between Expert Belt and Life Orb for me. I had Life Orb on there originally, went back to the Expert Belt not too long before the match. Largely because I didn't want the Life Orb chip to compile with with a possible toxic situation that I was worried about, and sort of shorten the lifespan of this Dreadnought beyond what I really wanted it to do. Bringing Terra Grass on this because it has, it takes that 4x weakness into a resist, which is really helpful. I'm also a little bit worried about an Aqua Jet from the Barraskewda, which is possibly a threat. So I really want to make sure that I'm sort of covering some good resists, and I'm not expecting too much as far as threats to grass types. Keeping an eye on that Glastrier and that Salazzle, but I believe this set has enough power to effectively threaten them even after the Grass Terra.
Yeah, no, I think it's really smart. You've got that max speed adamant means you're going to outspeed a bulky Zapdos, and then after Shell Smash, you even outspeed a Scarf Zapdos, although I wouldn't necessarily expect Zapdos to be scarfed. Liquidation and Rock Slide with that EQ coverage. With Expert Belt, you're only hitting 5 Pokemon super effectively, with Zapdos and Toxapex being kind of the notable ones, but you are getting a 50% chance to OHKO max defense Toxapex with EQ after a Shell Smash, and the Expert Belt is also letting you guaranteed OHKO max defense Landorus if you get the Shell Smash up and then aren't intimidated. So I think that's really good stuff to be aiming for. And yeah, the Life Orb, especially if you've got something like this that the Shell Smash is making it so powerful, often you don't need the full extra power of that Life Orb. So I do like the Expert Belt here, and I just kind of want to shout out how smart the Terra Grass is for a couple reasons. You get that resist to ground moves, you get the resist to electric moves, you get the resist to potential Aqua Jet, and I think the even sneakier thing is how good it is into Ditto. If you Shell Smash up, KO something, and then Ditto comes in thinking that it'll KO you in a reverse sweep, uh, suddenly you resist Liquidation and Earthquake, and the correct move is the normally resisted Rock Slide into you, which that Ditto is almost for sure not clicking. So I think that's really smart there, and yeah, this is a great set.
Yeah, the Dreadnought has been one of my favorite mon to use because it has a lot of versatility, but also it's very straightforward, and it being very straightforward is also still very good.
Yeah. All right. Well, then let's move on. We have kind of a physical breaker, I guess you could almost say it, in this Scizor here. What's going on with it?
Yeah, so some interesting choices with the scissor here. Some of the stuff is pretty clear. There's the bullet punch, which is intended to threaten out the Ditto copying the Iron Valiant or even the Diancie. There is U-turn, of course, for useful pivoting. There is close combat, which was a move that I kind of went a little bit back and forth on. But I liked how close combat worked against the Glastrier, especially, and also it had some uses against, for instance, the Komala. If he did decide to bring something like some hazard removal. So the close combat had some uses. I was concerned about the Glastrier being able to click some avalanches just to do some damage through any damage that I was putting on it. So I wanted a good option against it. And then finally, I brought Defog as the last move, which is a really weird move to bring on a choiced Mon, because you just won't be able to effectively pivot out after that. But I really thought that the hazard removal would be important, especially in case I just really needed to get those hazards out of there for some reason. And I didn't see another move in Scissor's move set really picking up anything more than what I was already picking up with the bullet punch U-turn in close combat. It's got maybe some flying coverage that doesn't really do anything here. And some of its other coverage moves, again, don't really pick up any more than what it's already got. So maybe I could have gone with a bug move that wouldn't have required the the pivot, like an X scissor, or a steel move that hit a little harder than bullet punch, but you're not picking up a lot more power with the Iron Head. So we're going to stand just to hit really hard with the U-turns, planning on doing a moderate amount of pivoting between the scissor and the rotom. The scissor is full HP here, and its typing lends itself really well to being a good Cresselia threat who doesn't learn a fire move. It's not going to do very much against something like the Salazzle, though a bullet punch actually, after a band, hits the relatively frail Salazzle fairly hard in case I really need something against that. There are some different pieces here. Planning on mostly using it as a pivot, but it has some sort of niche uses as well, and it's pretty durable.
Yeah, no, that's pretty solid. I agree with the defog. Having those status moves on choice sets is, risky, but I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing as long as you, are very careful about why you're bringing it. The choice band, I think, is the only thing that's a little, not questionable, but, that I don't think it has as much of a clear intention for. But, I haven't looked at the calc as far as if you need that to go after a Ditto that's turned into a Valiant, but also the choice band I think it's doing like 40, maybe even 50% to Salazzle and Barrascuda. So as far as potential, sweepers and fast things that you're scared of, I don't think the choice band is bad. I think it's providing you some pretty good use there. We'll just have to see, kind of what you end up clicking when this Scizor ends up being in.
Exactly. Yeah, it's the choices and the prediction are going to be sort of the important thing to do with this scissor, and you just have to sort of see how that plays out in the match.
Yeah. All right. Well, then tell me about this Diancie. Probably the most interesting set I think you brought here. It's certainly the most intricate, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll start with the EV because those sort of stand out as sort of a why would you do this sort of thing. The 136 defense is intended to survive exactly one liquidation from the Barrascuda, from a banded Barrascuda. The 116 special defense is designed to survive 2 zap cannons from the Zapdos. after the leftovers recovery. So one thing that the Kinglers had brought previously was a really strong Zapdos with a Zap Cannon that totally took the other team by surprise, and I really wanted to not be at that stage. So of course we've got the we've got those sort of two defensive stats calced pretty intricately to survive a couple of key situations. Watch out for a rampaging Barraskewda, or be able to withstand a little bit from a surprise Zapdos. Then there were 4 EVs remaining after I put all this other stuff in, and special attacks seemed fine, but again, those four EVs could have really gone anywhere and not made much of a difference. So then as far as the movesets go, we've got Draining Kiss for some extra durability. We've got Diamond Storm, which again is a great rock move with no resists and the chance to get some nice setup in. Reflect as that second screen that we mentioned a little bit earlier, and Stealth Rock to pick up, again, a lot of that extra chip damage that we were looking for, because I wasn't really expecting the Kinglers to bring much removal.
Sure. I think this is probably the only set that I definitely have, some notes on. I think the defensive spread makes sense, even if, it does mean that you're prepping for that so that you live that 1 in 4 double Zap Cannon hit.
Yeah,
but
not likely, but possible.
But it's something also with the Terra Water that turns into living 1 Zap Cannon. So that's potentially pretty good. I think the biggest question here is Draining Kiss. I just don't think it's that good on an uninvested set here with not really any special defense, special attack investment. There isn't a huge fairy weakness on the other team. I think just something like Moonblast as a stronger fairy move, or Earth Power, Psychic or Psyshock to hit Toxapex, Spikes like I talked about to kind of particularly hammer that Toxapex as it tries to pivot a bunch. I think something there would have just been a bit more reliable than the Draining Kiss here. But it's not bad. I think just probably not going to get a whole lot of use out of it in the match.
Yeah, exactly. In retrospect, I definitely agree with you here. This is an artifact of me sort of seeing this Diancie throughout the season as a major setup threat, and sort of a Amon that is very difficult to break due to its very high natural defenses and its possible recovery with that Draining Kiss. So I sort of had that as the default mode on that and didn't really question it going into this match. But looking at this set and now sort of seeing, okay, I'm not using Diancie as an offensive threat. I'm using it as some defense and some utility here. Yeah, definitely it's going to be a little more important to pick up things other than that recovery when that recovery isn't going to be very strong.
Yeah, and I guess kind of my only notes on this team in general, I will say I am surprised not to see the Thunderous with that Pex on the other side. Sure, you've got the Rotom, but Thunderous just pretty strong, great electric type. Volt switches are pretty free except for that Landorus. And no Skeledirge for something like Setup Cresselia. Just kind of wondering how you decided to kind of leave those Mons behind. I think I don't necessarily disagree with those decisions, but I think they were definitely pretty viable in this matchup.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I was looking at that Skeledirge for that Cresselia, but I didn't think that the Skeledirge fit against a lot of the other pieces on the team. Again, that like extra ground weakness that I would be sort of like leaning into that narrative that is, that my team has a lot of ground weaknesses. Didn't really feel great here, especially with that Landorus being such a good switch into the Skeledirge, along with, the Cresselia being possibly niche. And I also felt like the Scissor was a good, really good counter to that Cresselia. One thing that I did not consider ahead of time, I think I was under the impression that Cresselia was unable to Terra, and so I did not consider the Terra Fire being a massive threat to the Scissor. Fortunately, that oversight on my part was not going to be a problem. But I did see Scissor here as the major counter to that Cresselia. The as far as the Thunderous goes, it was definitely a good choice between the Thunderous and the Rotom. I thought that the Thunderous would have provided some more offense, but I felt pretty good about the offense that I already had on this team, and I liked the added utility that the Rotom brought. So it was definitely a close call between those two.
All right, well, a pretty solid team here. And let's move on to look what the Kinglers are bringing. Probably won't have quite as much to say about that team, but we'll pick it apart the best we can. All right, and here we have the Kanto Kinglers 6 Mons. Now, this team does come with a bit of a caveat that rumor has it, they prepped for the wrong team. The WCL this season has the Calgary Corviknights, who are the Kinglers' opponents, as well as the Corviknight Clobberers. And rumor has it that the Kinglers prepped for the wrong Corviknight-themed team. But they still brought this team, and it's still a pretty good team for this matchup. So let's kind of look at it and see how it does. Of course, starting off with that Barraskewda. We've got max speed and attack Adamant with a choice band. It's outspeeding max speed Iron Valiant still, and we've got Terra Water boosting Aqua Jet and Liquidation stab moves on it. Ice Fang then hits the water resists super effectively, and it's got Poison Jab here, which could still be used to hit Iron Valiant or a Terra Fairy option harder. But, something like that could be potentially from the team mix-up, something like Psychic Fangs over Poison Jab for the utility, or something like that just in case screens happen to come would be good. But the poison for like a Terra Fairy Diancie, pretty dang serviceable. So not at all bad there. What do you think about this Barraskewda set?
Yeah, definitely something that I expected to come, and it shows that it's pretty good in this matchup. That Aqua Jet being boosted by the band, really strong move here. Going to have to keep an eye on that thing throughout the match because it's going to be fast and it's going to hit hard.
Sure. And then we're moving on to the, we didn't talk about the Terra Flying on it, I think is an interesting option. Could be another hold over from the team mix up, because I don't think it adds too much to it in this matchup here. But, maybe if you're locked into a ground move at some point, it could be useful. It could let it eat a grass type move potentially, but it would still be weak to the electric, so we'll just kind of see how that plays out in the match. But we've got Ditto coming up. We talked about it before, and honestly, it's a Ditto. There's not much to say. It's got a Scarf. It's got the HP investment that Dittos have. And, it's just, like we talked about it before, it is solid in the matchup, able to copy something like Iron Valiant, Revavroom, Dreadnought, or Regidrago, who all could be trying to set up and then potentially reverse sweep there. Terra Dark, probably not particularly useful on it here. It could let it be immune to something like a Prankster Thunderwave from the Thunderous, but doesn't really offer much of anything on that. Greg, you have anything to say about this Ditto?
Not too much to say about it. Exactly what I expected, except for sort of that Terra type. Could be an artifact again of the Kinglers preparing for the Clobberers. Could have some use as sort of an immunity to cover one of Toxapex's weaknesses, kind of like that Terra Flying on the Barraskewda, covering the ground weakness for Toxapex. But I don't think there's a whole lot to say about this. This is standard for a reason.
Yep. All right, well, we're moving on to Zapdos, who's got max HP, max special attack, modest, holding the leftovers. Of course, got that static ability, potentially getting paras on any physical contact moves, hitting it. We've got Hurricane and Volt Switch stab options with Roost for longevity, and then Tailwind is the interesting move here. Tailwind, of course, would be nice and enables Barrascuda to outspeed any Scarfers on the opposing team. But the frailty of Barrascuda could make it kind of hard to get in safely afterwards. Something like Thunderwave, Thunderbolt, Protect would all be good alternatives, but if he happens to pull it off, get a Tailwind up, and then get the Barrascuda in for free to just start throwing off banded liquidations, that'll be pretty dang scary. What do you think about Zapdos here?
The Tailwind followed by the Volt Switch, if you can sort of get that right predict in, is a pretty interesting setup option that Kanto's bringing here, or even the Tailwind as sort of a move right before the sack is a good option. It definitely throws off a lot of the speed tier calculations that I had made. So that is, I think, kind of nice. And of course, the Volt Switch is pretty free against my team without any ground Pokemon. So yeah, I could see it going, making an argument for Thunderbolt because my team doesn't have any ground Pokemon, or sort of saying, well, this Tailwind followed by the Volt Switch is pretty good. Yeah, either one is a solid play, I think.
Sure. Okay, so going from one, bulky staple to another, we've got Landorus here. Max attack, max speed Jolly with a Choice Scarf. This is going to let it outspeed a Scarf Revavroom. He probably could take off a little bit of speed here to still outspeed Scarf Rotom and get a little extra bulk from it. But solid offensive Scarf here. No problems with that. Earthquake is the stab option. U-turn for pivoting. Brick Break is some interesting utility, and then we've got Stealth Rocks on the Choice Scarf. You had Banded Defog on Scissor here. We've got Scarfed Stealth Rocks. The Scarf Rocks, it's hard to use, but honestly, pretty solid. You can often, kind of force out a switch, get your rocks up, and then switch out yourself, especially when you have things as bulky as the last two mons that we're going to get to. Brick Break isn't that useful in this matchup. Could be left over from that team mix-up, but it will, potentially get rid of screens. It could be potential coverage on, I don't know, Terra Steel, Levitate, Rotom. There we go. But, something like a rock move to hit the ground Mew Thundurus, or Outrage for Regidrago, those options would probably be a bit better served, but we're not exactly sure where that Brick Break came from. Could just be a mistake here. What do you think about Landorus here?
Yeah, so I was surprised to see the scarf on this. As I mentioned, I think in the when we were discussing the preview of the two full teams, I noted that the Landorus isn't really that scared of the two mon on my team that are faster than it. So I thought it might be banded or something to boost its offense. So the scarf was a surprising thing for me. The Brick Break, of course, is a little ironic because I did choose to bring screens because I didn't see the Kinglers bringing anything to counter those screens. So somehow the double mix up here works in the Kinglers' favor.
Sure. And now that we've kind of got the offense out of the way, it's time for obnoxious defense. Moving on to Toxapex. Max HP, max defense with Black Sludge and Regenerator. This thing is an absolute physical monster. We've got a pretty interesting moveset, though. Icy Wind, Toxic, Acid Spray, and Recover. It is inventive. Toxic and Recover are, of course, classic. Icy Wind does provide nice speed control, but in this particular matchup will be pretty situational. Acid Spray is a funny move. I believe it's base 40 power with a guaranteed chance to drop special defense by 2. So it could be useful against things that are, that are getting bulkier from things like Calm Mind. But Sludge Bomb probably always more reliable in this particular matchup. A little surprised to see no Baneful Bunker or Protect, to kind of rack up more of that toxic stall. No Water Stab to hit something like Dreadnought or Steel types neutrally. No Haze to get rid of setup. This is a fun set, and it'll certainly still be annoying to break through. But as far as this one might be one of the ones that gets more lost in translation between the two different teams. That I think just a more standard Toxapex set would actually put in a lot of work in this match. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. This is actually one of the specific Pokemon that I talked with the Kanto coach about as being a victim of the mix-up. That acid spray was intended as a nice counter to a Sylveon, which I don't have, and sort of as a way to break down some walls. This set in particular, is not going to touch the scissor. The Icy Wind being a weak non-stab move, the acid spray and the toxic being, incapable of touching the scissor, and recover being nice but being limited. Somewhat fortunately for the Toxapex, the scissor is banded and can't, permanently you know, force it to waste all of those recovers. But probably suboptimal going up against my team, even if this is a nice set against the Clobberers.
Sure. And then we have last up the Cresselia, also a bulky monster, but we've got max HP, max special attack, modest holding the leftovers. We've got a Calm Mind Store to Power setup set here with Ice Beam for coverage and Moonlight for utility. Only one Psychic Resist on the Corviknight side means this could actually potentially go off, but it is going to be tough. Scizor is going to hit it hard with bug moves while resisting both of those attacks, and a Skeledirge could potentially ignore the boosts, and, Physical Valiant also an option that could do a lot of damage. I think in this match in particular, max special defense with some support options like Thunder Wave or Lunar Dance, which fully heals an ally in exchange for KOing the Cresselia. Even something like Rain Dance for Barraskewda probably would have been more reliable. If you wanted to go Calm Mind, Psychic maybe over Stored Power could be, or a different coverage option might have been more reliable, as would probably have been investing in defense to kind of cover some of those hits that you're not going to be sponging as well once you have gotten those Calm Minds boosting your special defense. But, this thing could potentially go off if the physical threats get answered on the other side. What do you think about this Cresselia set here?
Yeah, it's definitely going to be tough to break through in certain ways. Looking at the overall team composition here, the 3 ground immunities are really nice thing to have, along with that possible Terra Flying for the Barraskewda to bring in a 4th. I think the fact that I don't have any dark types and also didn't bring any dark Terras, along with only that kind of one Psychic Resist, make this a possible setup threat depending on sort of the particular situation in the match and the particular mon that it's going up against.
All right. Well, kind of looking overall on this team, we know there were some mix-ups here and there, but things that I think this team could benefit from. I definitely think with that Raichu Drago on the other side, a dedicated special wall like especially defensive Cresselia would be very useful. Some other options could be things like Scarfed Salazzle, which could have been cool with something like Fire, Poison, Dragon, and maybe Terra Grass coverage. Also, at Scarf, you can outspeed Adamant Dreadnought after a Shell Smash. But these choices do a surprisingly good job of covering this team, even if it wasn't the intended team. Just a question of, some of these gimmickier sets, are they going to be able to function in this matchup or not? You have any closing remarks here?
Not too much to say. I mean, most of these are pretty sort of standard sets on these mon, and there's a reason they're the standard sets. They're pretty good. They work fairly well, and I think the Kinglers played this set really well, given that it was preparation for the wrong team. So I think even with some of the preparation oversights, the Kinglers play a good enough game that they can, I think, make any match close, and we'll see that in fact turn out to be the case here.
This is the feature match for a reason, and with all of that out of the way, let's finally jump into the actual match and see how it all went down. And here we are, we've got the battle, both teams seeing each other for the first time here, seeing what was brought. For the Corviknights, they're going to need to kind of scout out the bulk and, kind of watch out for that Ditto, of course, or potentially win some speed ties. But Dreadnought goes in very hard once that Ditto is gone. Drago goes in hard right off the bat. I could definitely see leading Regidrago just for the immediate offensive pressure, or perhaps even Scizor for some scouting and a slow pivot. For the Kinglers, only one ground resist present in that levitating Rotom Mo means that Lando could be quite good in this matchup. Of course, they'll need to watch out for the Regidrago breaking early and trying to figure out what item that Valiant could potentially have, or even which attacking stat it's using. I like the Landorus lead for potential fast pivot and also being able to hit Regidrago before it could fire off a Dragon Energy as a lead for them. What did you think kind of seeing this team preview here?
Yeah, so I was pretty excited seeing this team preview to not see the Glastrier. The Glastrier with an Avalanche was the one thing that was going to probably stop me from clicking Dragon Energy on the first turn. So not having to worry about that is a big benefit. So that was looking really good. As you mentioned, the Dreadnought looks great here after a Shell Smash. It's going to get intimidated by the Landorus to reduce it, but the Expert Belt, still provides some extra damage, and it hits fairly hard even at neutral attacks. So I'm liking both of those Mon here. Definitely planning on leading that Regidrago, clicking Dragon Energy, and hoping for the best.
All right, well, we will see. It is that Regidrago up against that Landorus. We see the Intimidate. This is a very funny lead. Both sides leading with Choice Scarf Mons. Actually, very funny. Both teams have two Choice Scarf Mons. In the Ditto and the Landorus, and then the Valiant and the Drago. So yeah, we'll see what each person is predicting kind of the other to do. Landorus goes for the U-turn, gets a nice chunk off of the Regidrago before it can fire off that Dragon Energy, which still does a huge amount to physically defensive Toxapex. The U-turn makes sense. You get that damage off on it. EQ would have been nice, would have done, I believe, around 50%, weakened that Dragon Energy even further, but if just something like a Draco Meteor came out, that was a dead Landorus, and risking that would have been pretty bad. So U-turns good here, but man, we just see Regidrago doing so much damage here. How did you think about that first turn? You did get the Scarf revealed on the Landorus while not revealing your own Scarf, and you did huge damage to that Toxapex.
Yeah, so definitely a bit of a roller coaster first turn here. Disappointed to see the Scarf on the Landorus. As I've mentioned, I was not expecting that, and I thought this was going to be either a free KO on the Landorus or possibly a two-hit KO on the Toxapex or Cresselia. So that was disappointing, but not revealing my own Scarf was actually a sort of nice sort of, as sort of compensation, I guess, for the 25% chip there. The big damage on the Toxapex, good to see. The Dragon Energy wasn't going to KO the Toxapex even from full. So I think overall this wasn't a win on the first turn, but it wasn't a loss either.
All right, well, we're gonna see with all that damage, turn two. Something's gonna have to take a Dragon Energy still, and it's gonna be Cresselia, who still takes half, but gets, with the leftovers, saving it from necessarily that clean two-shot KO there. What do you think about this Cresselia coming in here? You think you're safe to just keep spamming Dragon Energies?
No, I don't think I'm safe to keep spamming dragon energies. Sort of looking at the calcs here, I'm seeing 47 to 56%. So only a like huge high roll here is going to KO this Cresselia. I think that a possible I think Cresselia learns Moonblast, so a
It does.
possible Moonblast here really throws out the Regidrago, and I'm not looking to sort of keep that threatening.
Yep, the Moonblast is of course scary, as is the interesting situation that assuming that this Cresselia has Moonlight, they both Dragon Energy and Moonlight have 8 PP, so you could trade all of your Dragon Energy PP for almost all of Cresselia's recovery, which is something. But yeah, no, just going out to the Scizor as we see that Moonlight come up, bringing the Cresselia back up to full. And now Scissors in here gets a pretty nice and free U-turn coming up. It's probably gonna be.
Yep, that's exactly what I'm thinking. The U-turn, probably, I don't think it KOs, but it's pretty close to it, and lets me get that pivot into sort of whoever I want.
Sure. And we're going to see, expecting that Landa's going to come in, get the Intimidate off, only take about a quarter from that U-turn, and now Rotom Mow is in. You said this Rotom Mow is, of course, your Landorus answer. I think going out into it straight is a little bit interesting. You know that it's Scarfed. You know that it has U-turn. I almost wonder if you could have gone out into something like Dreadnought to try and bait the EQ and double into Rotom after you get it locked into that. But of course, if it just goes for the U-turn into something like the defensive Pex on the Dreadnought, then, you're going to be eating an extra U-turn that you don't need to without getting a move off. Any thoughts on kind of going straight into the Rotom here?
Yeah, I don't think I was thinking too hard about this. I sort of had this game plan of getting that burn in. I thought maybe he would go for something like a Stone Edge here, and I would sort of be willing to trade that damage from the Stone Edge for the burn. Yeah, it was sort of it was an opportunity, and I'm not going to turn down a burn against anybody, even if he decides to pivot
Oh
here.
yeah, no. Looking at any of these things you're happy to burn, really. And we're gonna see we are seeing that U-turn come out, do a little over a third. Cresselia coming out, getting burned. Obviously, the physical attack reduction not mattering much on Cresselia, but you are negating those lefties now, which is pretty solid.
Yeah, pretty okay with how that turn went, and I'm not feeling like Cresselia is a big threat to the Rotom here, so gonna sort of think about a pivot, but I've got that light screen on that Rotom here, and that is going to be a nice counter to whatever this Cresselia can
Yep.
do.
We're gonna see you throw up that light screen as Calm Mind comes out, and ooh, that is an interesting situation here. Of course, you have that Scizor, you have the Dreadnought, Diancie, has a physical attack but isn't particularly physically offensive. Calm Mind on this Cresselia actually looks pretty great in this matchup, letting it sponge the Drago hits a little bit better. Obviously not being too afraid of the Rotom, letting it sponge some Valiant hits. So kind of what are you think you've got the edge on this by a little bit, kind of setting up a light screen, but starts calm minding up. Kind of how are you feeling about that?
Yeah, just a little bit nervous because I know that Cresselia gets that Grass Knot that can really threaten the Dreadnought if I decide to pivot into it here. It starts looking a lot better against the Scissor. So yeah, it's a concerning sort of development here, and something that I'm going to have to immediately counter.
All right. And we're going to see that happen by Volt switching out here, not doing much of anything, but that is going to get you into your Scizor as Calm Mind comes out for the Cresselia again. We know that this thing's set. doesn't have, its stored power is its kind of stab option, so you're really gonna need several Calm Minds to be getting that to do pretty crazy damage. But now you've got that Scizor in, who's threatening some pretty big damage here on this Cresselia U-turn, doing like 78 to low 90 something. So pretty nice, just getting the Scizor in for free there. Even though you're behind the light screen, probably not going to take too much.
Yeah, exactly. Feeling okay about this sort of situation here. If he decides to click a damage move or something now that he's at +2, then I think I'm looking at about a 63% chance to KO. So feeling okay about this on the U-turn, and just sort of seeing how the roll plays out here.
Yeah. And we're going to see it moonlight up a little bit, perhaps, of a miscalculation, trying, of course, probably to eat that U-turn and then moonlight up after it. But because you are an uninvested Scizor, it actually outspeeds, and so it's going to take huge damage from about a max roll there on the U-turn, I believe. Now,
Yeah.
Regidrago's in again, and Dragon Energy sure looks spammable still.
Yeah, sure looks very free. Either the Cresselia can call it a day, or something can switch into it and eat a pretty good chunk of HP.
All right, well, we are going to see that, yeah, this thing's at 8%, just gonna get sacked here to the Dragon Energy. And what's coming out? Ditto is coming out, which is interesting. Um, I mean, I guess we don't know that the Regidrago is scarfed, but it's definitely not Specs. And it went for an HP reliant move against Landorus, who is naturally faster than it. It didn't switch to Draco Meteor after the Cresselia switched in to potentially KO it there. So I think all things lead to Choice Scarf. I guess, sometimes you just think that you're gonna win the speed tie. And, sure, why not? But we,
Yeah, so this seemed like a risky move, especially when I'm sitting here behind the light screen. These calcs show that even the big dragon moves are rolls to KO. It's a roll to win the speed tie. It's yeah, it's also it's a bit of a risky play. But I'm looking at this and I'm seeing that Diancie is basically free here. I know what the move set that I've got on the Regidrago is. The best thing he can do to the Diancie is click Earth Power, and behind a light screen, the Diancie is just gonna soak it easily.
yeah, I do think the dragon moves are guaranteed from the range that you're out at, though.
Oh,
Um,
you are correct. Yes,
yeah,
I forgot that I was
but
down a little
but
HP.
still, we're gonna see. Like we said, that basically forces him into the dragon moves, which gives you a just free Diancie switch. Really good there. You're still also behind the light screen in case it goes for an insane Earth Power prediction. I think you're still taking like 20% max from like an Earth Power because of that light screen. So real good pivot here into the Diancie. And you've got kind of a free turn to kind of go for whatever you want here.
Yeah, and here's where I'm seeing rocks as being kind of the best play, just to get that consistent chip. No removal on the opposing team, so those rocks are going to look pretty good.
Definitely. So in comes Toxapex, getting a little bit healing from kind of the switching of the regenerator, a little bit of extra lefties, probably not particularly threatened by anything this Diancie has. As you get up those rocks, really only particularly of note against the Zapdos, but with something like a Scarfed unit turning Landorus, and of course regenerating Toxapex, all the chip you can get on that pivoting is very, very nice to see.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm, exactly.
And so now with Toxapex in, we're going to see Scizor switch into probably what you expected to be a Toxic, and you see Icy Wind here. You barely
Yeah,
take
that
any damage from it. I don't know if maybe he was protecting the Rotom to switch in, but honestly, I mean, Icy Wind, yeah, sure, why not? What do you think is seeing the Icy Wind?
I was very surprised to see that. I was looking at it. I couldn't figure out what exactly the speed reduction was going to do. Against this very slow Toxapex. Didn't see that as being super useful. I mean, it's again a non-stab move that could maybe like lower the dragon energy damage from Reggie Drago.
Lets
But
things
it's
outspeed scarfs, I guess.
yeah, it's an interesting choice of coverage move. I wasn't unhappy seeing it.
Sure. Well, now that you're just gonna go launch out into Rotom as it goes for its own icy win there again. Doing a little bit more here now that it's super effective. You hard switch to Rotom rather than U-turn. I think actually even with the speed trap, I think you Toxapex is slow enough that I think you still outsped it. But why the hard switch there?
I can't remember.
Fair.
Honestly, have no idea. Wish I could tell you, but boy, that yeah, I forgot that I did that.
All fair. But now that you're in here, Zapdos is going to switch in as you go for the light screen. Very interesting there. Risking potentially getting toxic, or eating something like a sludge bomb. You didn't, and you also didn't go, straight for the damage of the Volt Switch. But that light screen, pretty nice as you see the Zapdos come in here. Um, you could have also gone for something like a Will-O-Wisp, potentially predicting the Lando to switch into an electric move. Could have negated the lefties on Zapdos, but you know, uh, all things considered, pretty solid here turn for you.
Yeah, I think it was okay. I felt like there was kind of the implicit threat of the electric move there that led me to think that the Toxapex was probably not going to stay in, and so I figured the light screen was pretty safe, and I'd react accordingly.
All right, light screen up, turn 15 here. Zapdos gonna go for the Tailwind as you finally Volt Switch here, do about a quarter, and we're into the Diancie. Behind the light screen, resists, of course, Hurricane, has the super effective Diamond Storm, looking like a pretty good spot to be a Diancie.
Yeah, looking great. The Diamond Storm is again looking really solid with no resists here. Yeah, the Tailwind was surprising to see, but it's the Diancie was never going to outspeed anyone, so we're just gonna be comfortable waiting out that Tailwind.
Yep. Nice play here, going for the Roost. It's going to heal up and also then not be weak to the Diamond Storm while kind of stalling out its own Tailwind, sure, but also the Light Screen. Um, you did get the defensive boost on that, which is, pretty nice to see. You've got 3 turns of Light Screen left. You got the defense boost. Diancie, little, kind of becoming a little untouchable, and we will see same turn next turn, including the Diamond Storm defense boost. So now this is a very, very hard to kill Diancie.
Yeah, it sure is. The real problem is that I've now got to consider that 8 PP Diamond Storm move and sort of looking at it, am I really wanting to use all of that against a Zapdos that keeps roosting against me? I'm not really sure. It's a tough call. I figure I'll probably go for it another time, but if it's looking like he's gonna PP stall my Diamond Storm, then maybe we can't keep that up forever.
Sure. Well, he does decide to throw in the towel here. Volt switches out, not doing much, as Ditto comes in, which is interesting. Of course, not going to take much at all from the Diamond Storm, but we do know your Diancie's set here. He's finding it out here, and man, not much to do here as a Scarfed Ditto. Um,
Yeah,
we are going to see next turn. He is going to go for the Draining Kiss, does a little bit, recovers a little bit. You go for the Draining Kiss, but because of Imposter, he's only got 5 of those. You're easily going to be able to just stall him out here. I probably, getting up your own rocks probably would have been solid there. Sure, you're locked into them, and they might be able to take advantage of the switch afterwards. but you're getting up your own rock chip there, or even probably maybe something out doubling out into something, expecting that you're not going to click Diamond Storm again here. Could go out to something like Toxapex to potentially start toxicking or something. But you're both just gonna Draining Kiss there, and we're gonna see next turn finally. Here's the Toxapex, and Draining Kiss not gonna do really anything. But Diancie back up to full health here. How are you feeling about kind of Diancie's kind of exchanges here?
Yeah, I'm feeling pretty okay about that exchange. Feeling like I didn't like produce any like really big damage there, but a little chip on Ditto is nice, and it's like I've got this Diancie who is pretty comfortable sitting here. Doesn't seem like he has a lot of ways to threaten it other than the Toxapex Toxic, which I think is a good place to sort of be thinking about the future of this match.
Yeah, we're talking about that, and that really is just about his only option. Gonna go for it there as Scizor does come in, being immune to that. But this is kind of an interesting um thing, we a kind of matchup we've got here where neither of these Pokemon can really do much of anything to the others. Scizor, of course, has that choice band, but all of its moves are resisted by the Toxapex. So, they're both just kind of sitting here, and it's a little bit of a guessing game as to, kind of what everyone's going to do. And we're going to see that you do go for the U-turn, does a little bit of damage, as they make a very good play and go for the second Toxic, predicting you will U-turn out, and getting
Yeah,
that Dreadnought.
Yeah, that was a really nice predict on the part of the Kinglers. I really thought that the Dreadnought was the right play here. I was a little concerned about it. It was sort of one of those things that entered my mind going into this. But I sort of saw this as the best play to make some progress in this match because, as you said, that Scissor just not touching that Toxapex.
Yep. The question is, how long is the timer on this Dreadnought? Is it big enough? We are going to get the Intimidate as Lando switches in, but there is that Shell Smash, and as I talked about before, especially at this range, but even from full, at that +1 attack still, that Expert Belt, meaning that Liquidation can KO the Landorus. An interesting option also would have been to go for Icy Wind, because then you only get the one stage of speed raise, and then I think Barraskewda and Landorus both outspeed you. But Landorus, nice and safe here, got the Intimidate, and now we're gonna see it starts getting to come into a couple predictions here. So kind of what's your initial thought here? You get intimidated. What's kind of your plan for this Dreadnought?
Yeah, so I think that this. So I guess maybe first things first. I'm really pleased that I got the Shell Smash off without having to spend the Terra. I felt like the Toxapex was one of the things that I could kind of set up on. I would understand that I would have to take a Toxic for my troubles, but I could set up on it without worrying about a KO when I click the Shell Smash. So I'm pretty okay with that. The Intimidate is a little frustrating just because that 2x attack Earthquake really touches that Toxapex a little bit better. But I'm okay with this situation. I really do have to click a move that threatens that Landorus, just because that Landorus, if he Earthquakes here, he's going to be just destroying this -1 defense Dreadnought.
Sure, you also do have to watch out for Ditto. That's kind of one thing that the Intimidate is actually probably a little bit nice, that, if the Ditto does come in, it just makes it even easier to survive something from that. But like you said, you're going to get a little more Toxic Chip. Smart switch to Toxapex on the Liquidation there, and we're going to start seeing kind of this mind game as Dreadnought gets worn down by Toxic even more of, do you click Earthquake? Do you click Liquidation? Which one is going to be in when you attack?
Yeah, so again, I'm really looking at, threatening the particular mon that's in right now. I think that if he goes to the Lando and stays immune to this earthquake that I'm about to click, then that is going to be sort of where I pull the plug on Dreadnought and sort of say, there's going to be another opportunity for me to get this, but I really need to reset this toxic damage. If he stays in, looking at the calcs here, there's a pretty decent chance of an OCO. This Toxapex now being at 74% means that I'm looking at about a 63% chance to OCO this thing. So definitely willing to take that risk given how pesky this Toxapex has been so far.
Sure. And you just barely missed that 63% chance, right? And it's going to recover up and get healthier again. And you're going to take more chip on this Dreadnought, down 38 and 25% next from the next Toxic tick. You're starting to get, risk of, sure, again, Earthquake, it's now definitely in range of, but, a switch to Landorus and, things get pretty hairy as far as this Dreadnought potentially going down without doing much of anything.
Yeah, he can absolutely stall out this Dreadnought at this point. If I click Earthquake again, sure, that can KO the Toxapex. But, if he goes into either of his two ground immunities, then, he can go right back to the Toxapex the next round and survive whatever I click as I die to Toxic. So this Dreadnought's got to come out. I'm assuming his Toxapex is probably also going to come out, but, there are... there are a lot of mind games going on here.
Sure. And I do like switching out the Dreadnought here, not getting too locked in on, kind of that you need those boosts, as we're actually going to see the Toxapex switch out to Zapdos, which I think is a really good middle ground play. You're not taking, uh, you're avoiding the potential Earthquake, and also, if he does go for Liquidation, you're losing this Zapdos. There's rocks up. We've seen, the Rotom has Light Screen. Definitely Zapdos much less valuable than the Lando, potentially risking that switching into it. So I think that's a very nice middle ground play from the Kinglers. But also a great play on your part, Greg, for just, kind of realizing, you don't need to let this Dreadnought go down here. Just because you've got the Shell Smash setup doesn't mean that's the one and only time this Pokemon's going to be in. So nice switch out here to the Rotom, and you're looking at a matchup here that we've seen before, and you're probably pretty happy with.
Yeah, pretty comfortable with this. The Rotom is not worried about what this Zapdos is going to do to it, so we can set up, we can pivot, and sort of try to manipulate this situation to our advantage.
Yep. Lefties, then Zapdos going to roost back up to basically full with the lefties as you get up your Light Screen and a little lefties recovery of your own. And, well, probably going to be looking at potentially a couple of Volt switches here. It's actually, they're going to go for the Hurricane, no confusion, does decent damage, Volt switch, a little under a quarter, and out into the Regidrago. And, well, Regidrago sure hasn't stopped looking like an insane Pokemon in this matchup.
Yep, that was the plan the whole time. Get a couple of defensive pivots that can get this Regidrago in safely, and sure looks good again.
Yep. So we're gonna see here. It's pretty much at this point pick a sack. It's gonna be Zapdos going down to the Draco Meteor now. Does get that special attack drop though, and we're into the Landorus, getting at the Intimidate. That's not a big deal. But outspeeding this Regidrago and Regidrago's special attack already dropped means this is probably a pretty free U-turn for them.
Yeah, it definitely looks like it. I mean, this Regidrago isn't staying in, so I've got to choose who is going to go in to take this U-turn.
Okay, all right. Rotom is going to come in as actually the rocks go up, which is interesting. Sure you're expecting potentially the earthquake. U-turn would have been kind of rough here. Onto the Rotom would have brought you down to probably around a quarter or so. Have to imagine that Barrascuda potentially could have come in then. But I guess you don't know for sure that the Regidrago is scarfed yet. But you
Hmm.
think that they have to suspect it. And you might be thinking about the U-turn. So just kind of an interesting turn overall. You don't know that the Corviknights think you're scarfed, but you're probably fine just going for the U-turn there. But
Yeah,
instead
yeah,
we've
it's
got Rotom in against a Lando choiced into rocks.
Yep, pretty comfortable with that. And the fact that the screen's already up means that I don't need to take any time to reset that. So sure, let's show some damage for the first time with this Rotom. I
Yeah,
think we're going for a Leaf Storm here.
you are. And Leaf Storm misses,
Oops.
missing about a 37% ish on kind of the damage you could expect there. But hey, at least your special attack isn't dropped.
Yeah, we'll take that. I guess would have been nice to get that further chip on the Toxapex, but such is life.
Yeah, I do think though, I mean, that the Landorus is scarfed. I do think that the better play is just spamming Volt Switch.
Hmm.
Um, you know that it's not doing anything. You're getting lefty's recovery, and whenever it switches out, you do get that priority of the pivoting back into almost certainly that Regidrago.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good call. And now there's this slower Toxapex out there, so that slow pivot is no longer an option.
Yep. Um, And so you're going to go for the Wisp. Be nice to kind of negate the lefties or hit an incoming Lando with that. Miss again. Toxic lands though, and now Rotom's on a little bit of a timer, but honestly, Rotom probably doesn't mind the Toxic that much. You're pivoting it around with Volt Switch a fair amount, and looking at the you're only taking one or two more U-turns from that Landorus anyways. So probably not that big a deal getting that Toxic on here now.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those things. It's compared to the other possible outcomes here, I think that's an okay one.
Yeah, and I do think the other thing is not seeing a Sludge Bomb come out here starts making, kind of me think about what does this Toxic have in that last move slot. Didn't go for a
Hmm.
good poison move here, which probably would have been the play if it had it. Starts making Valiant in the back look even nicer. And
Yeah,
also
sure
from
does.
the Kingler's point of view, I keep seeing that Valiant in the back not being brought out at any of these points. I start thinking about, well, is it booster energy and it's being saved for a cleaner, or is it just another kind of revenging choice Scarf Mon, less of like a Specs Breaker or something? So interesting kind of seeing what the information we can kind of glean from both sides here.
Yeah, exactly. Really playing with five Pokemon for the first half of this match is kind of interesting. I again had that scarf on that Iron Valiant, so it's sitting in there as a nice revenge killer or something if I can get it in freely. I've just had a hard time getting it in really freely so far, and feeling like it will have the power to really make a difference.
Sure. All right, and we're going to see Volt Switch out here. Big damage into the Scizor as Icy Wind comes out. Interesting going into the Scizor again. We kind of talked about the matchup these two have. Instead of going out to the Regidrago, sure, you're risking the damage from Icy Wind, but then you just get a free Draco Meteor on anything you want.
Yeah, yeah. The idea here was sort of to continue to chip down that Toxapex. Yeah, the Reggie Draco looks really great still. And I was looking to continue to put some pressure on that Toxapex with another U-turn here. But yeah, the it I was definitely in a pivoting mindset here, just sort of trying to find the perfect time to get in that Reggie Drago rather than necessarily a good time.
Sure. Well, now Ditto's going to go out into Scizor. As you go for U-turn, do big damage, actually, relatively, doing easily over half of whatever that Scizor had left as you go out into your Rotom Mow, which is, again, an interesting option here. Because looking at the scarf, I do believe that the Ditto outspeeds you. Could go for a very free U-turn here.
Yeah, that is a good point. I think it was something that I wasn't. I think I forgot about the scarf on the scissor and forgot that in fact it did outspeed this Rotom. So I think that was quite probably a mistake. Yeah, because that U-turn looks really great, and I don't have a ton that I'm going to be able to pick up against that Ditto here.
Sure. Although, of course, looking at things, you've got the Rotom, which isn't, you did go into Regidrago doesn't really want to take the Bullet Punch. Of course, it could Terra Steel to resist it. Valiant doesn't want to take the Bullet Punch. Dreadnought, nothing. There's surprisingly actually not a lot of good switch-ins here. You'd probably have to go out into something like the Valiant, and then double into something like the Rotom, or just sack something like the Dreadnought. But we are going to see here, turn 35, hard switch out into the Toxapex as you go for the Volt Switch, get the nice critical hit doing big damage, going back out into Scizor. That turns out that the Scarf does mean that Scizor, that Ditto would have outsped as a Scizor gotten off that big U-turn. But, from kind of what we've seen here, I don't think he has a lot of information on the Rotom set. We know it's some sort of bulky, but not being super confident in it not having a good chunk of speed investment that will let it outspeed the Scizor that is a Ditto. Just forces them to hard switch instead, and they get punished with the critical hit there, doing big damage. And now Scizor can come in and threatens a KO with a high roll on close combat. Although
Yeah,
really Regidrago would have threatened an easy KO even without the crit on anything.
yes, absolutely. So here was I'm really grateful that you paused the video at this exact moment in time. Because this is what I was looking at when I saw this Toxapex coming in, or when I was picking who to pivot into. This Scissor here against this Toxapex is looking like it's going to pick up at least 14.1% on, or sorry, it's picking up 16 to 19% on this U-turn here. And so I was absolutely planning on using this U-turn that's coming up to either KO the Toxapex or continue to sort of win this pivot game. However, I forgot that this Toxapex is carrying a Black Sludge, and when it gets exactly 6% from those leftovers recovery, all of a sudden that U-turn, it doesn't KO this Toxapex. So now I can't click the U-turn. The close combat barely does a little more damage, so I'm going to click that close combat just because I need this Toxapex down. But that was a mistake in sort of forgetting about
That checks
that
out.
Black Sludge.
Definitely not seeing the Black Sludge recovery. I can't say that I wouldn't have made a similar mistake in the match. And yeah, you're going there. You need a high roll on the close combat. But that just lets in the Landorus with the Intimidate, close combat, doing good chunk of the Landorus's health still, but it's going to easily live that. If the Toxapex had just stayed in, didn't get KO'd and recovered, that would have been very unfortunate. And now, Landorus is in here, but, it is actually starting to get worn down by those rocks.
Yeah, so I'm grateful to see this continued chip on this Landorus here from these stealth rocks, because that means that my Scarfed Iron Valiant can use one of its coverage moves to get rid of the Lando rather than being forced to resort to the generally weak Icy Wind
or the stab moonblast that Toxapex resists. So that is going in my favor, but we're now in this sticky situation where this Scissor is not going to be able to really do that much to the Lando, especially if that Lando goes for a solid Earthquake here.
Yep. And we're gonna see here going out into the road. I'm potentially expecting that Earthquake, but the U-turn's going to come out, get the KO there, and Barrascuda finally hitting the field as Regidrago then comes out here. You've got the Scarf, you've got the HP, you resist a water move, looking pretty solid here. And that Landorus can only come in, I believe, one more time before it dies to rocks. So that Landorus pretty close to not being a thorn in your side anymore.
Yeah, this is feeling pretty good here. This even if he goes for another some move that threatens the Regidrago here, like the Ice Fang, it is not going to be too much of an issue. I think I'm looking at that Ice Fang. Oh no, that Ice Fang is actually a concern. But I believe he knows that I am scarfed at this point, so I'm counting on the scarf threat to sort of counter to be intimidating enough to this Barrascuda that maybe he doesn't want to risk losing it to the incoming Draco.
Sure. And we are going to see him switch out to the Ditto, something just sacking that to the Dragon Energy. Dragon Energy, of course, picking up the KO on a banded Barrascuda, picking up KO, or at least two-shotting, anything that wants to switch in there. So very nice. Yeah, kind of you're only at risk of, like a banded Ice Fang or something like that. You're probably gonna do pretty dang good. Otherwise, and now this is the Landorus's last time in here, but all your Earthquake switching is gone. Valiant, of course, still at full health, but doesn't want to take it. Diancie at full health, but weak to it. Nothing really wants to take it. So what are you thinking about with this Earthquaking Lando here?
Yeah, so I'm actually feeling okay about the earthquaking Lando here. And the reason goes back all the way to the beginning of our conversation, where I chose to put those 60 EVs on Regidrago in defense rather than HP. Because that's exactly what makes the survivability difference here. Is sort of having that like little bit of extra defense to cover against this earthquake, since I know he's scarfed. So I'm feeling okay about it, feeling like I can continue to click this dragon energy, because even at low HP, if he gets a nice high roll here on this earthquake, I am going to survive and KO back. So feeling actually okay about that, even if from the Kingler's perspective, this earthquake looks like it might KO.
Yeah, no, that's really nice seeing those EVs come out. Yeah, I just double checked. You're right. If those 60 HPs, those 60 EVs were in anything but defense, Earthquake would have a chance to KO here. But you're actually just outside of the range here. So you're going to see Earthquake come in, and even with a sliver, Dragon Energy, weak as heck, but enough to pick up that Landorus there. And now Toxpex is coming in with a chance to recover because, like I said, Dragon Energy HP based, and you basically have none. So we're going to see you go out to Scissor here as the Toxpex does just recover up.
Yeah, so definitely wanted to rescue that Regidrago. I think during the match, I also forgot that I had not EV'd it to outspeed that Barrascuda, which sort of explains the weird
Oh,
Regidrago switch in against the Barrascuda, and also explains why at the beginning of this conversation I had forgotten that it didn't outspeed the Barrascuda. So I think there's sort of an extra, factor there where I fortunately won a mind game that I wasn't trying to play. But in this case, now that I've switched out the Reggie Drago, I am looking at its 6% HP and thinking, wow, that dies to rocks the next time it comes in. It would be nice if it didn't die to rocks when it came in. So we are going to use that banded defog here, because those rocks on the other side, not going to do that much, and they do play a meaningful role for me.
Yep, and you're going to take a whole 4% HP for that trouble.
Yeah,
So yeah, no, that's a great play there, letting the Reggie Drago, still absolutely terrifying. You don't outspeed the Barraskewda, but it's looking like it could be huge in at getting rid of this Toxapex eventually in the end game.
yeah,
So
sure does seem like that.
yep, so nice there. We're gonna see now that you're locked into that Dreadnought switching in. Sure, Toxic comes out, maybe trying to predict the Diancie, but Dreadnought not doing much at this point in the match, so nice just send it out here.
Yep, and I figured Toxic was the move there, so it's not like, toxicing the already toxic Dreadnought is too much of a loss for me.
Yep. I think an interesting play for them would have been actually to switch to Barraskewda there.
Mm.
Now, of course, Diancie, you haven't used your Terra yet, but, and it probably even doesn't die, from full to a liquidation because it's just so bulky. But I think that would have been a little bit more effective than going for the Toxic there. But now we're going to see Dreadnought back in against this Toxapex that has been a thorn in its side. Will it really be able to do anything before it's worn down? Here comes the Barraskewda as you do go for the last ditch shell smash there. And you're down to just 20% left, 12% on the next Toxic. What are you thinking about this Dreadnought?
Yeah, not a great play there. Clicked that to try to outspeed the Barraskewda, because I figured that was the switch in, but of course forgot about the chip that the Toxic would provide, and also the priority move that Barraskewda is, of course, bringing. So not the greatest play. The Terra Grass here isn't going to save me from that Barraskewda's Aqua Jet, even at even with resisting in the Terra Grass because of that -1 defense. So it, yeah, just not a great play. Clicking Earthquake to get some chip in on Barraskewda so that, I'm sort of keeping an eye on when is Iron Valiant's Psychic going to be enough to OHKO the Barraskewda. And right now we're not there. But if I had gotten an Earthquake chip there, absolutely would have been. And then that Iron Valiant is pretty free.
Sure. Although, of course, this isn't the worst, because if you got the shell smash off, that was the potentially winning play. If he had stayed in and just tried to recover stall your Toxic,
Hmm.
you could have just you gotten the shell smash and then potentially OHKO with the follow up. But here's the world we live in, and yep, Aquajet just gonna come out, gonna hit the Dread. Here's the Scizor, though, and you got a little bit of mind games here, I guess.
Yeah, so definitely can't send out the Reggie Drago here. A little nervous about sending out the Iron Valiant, given that the Psychic is sort of the move that I would need to click, and I'm not sure whether like a Terra Water Aqua Jet is going to come out and possibly two-hit KO it. So this is kind of the safer play to continue to try to chip the Barraskewda down into range of that Psychic. Diancie here, not amazing as well. Could Terra Water, but the Diancie doesn't have much to do to that Toxapex, and the Terra Water isn't going to help out much with that situation either.
Yep, makes sense. So we're going out here. Aquajet not a KO, so we're going back out into the Pex. U-turn there, then bringing in, here's that Reggie Drago. And we're looking pretty cool here. Valiant could have been interesting going out here too instead. I don't think you have anything that KOs the Pex here from this Drago. Of course, we don't know that last move on the Toxapex, but I think we went over earlier, looking like it's probably not a particularly powerful poison type move, so you could have just gone starting to spam Psychic now, but going out to the Regidrago, who does, even if it's not a Oko, threaten huge damage here.
Yeah, exactly. The idea was to bring out a Draco and accept that the Regidrago was going to go down, but that I was going to get enough in on the Toxapex so that the Iron Valiant could maybe even, I guess, maybe even go to a fairy move. I'm not sure that's good enough. But you know, they're get enough damage in, sack the Regidrago, and be able to revenge kill this Toxapex with the Valiant.
Yeah, it's looking like Psychic to the Barraskewda doing 66 to 78. You're taking 39 to 46 from an Aqua Jet. So you're kind of looking at those numbers. Looks like you need, let me just check here. Scissor's Bullet Punch should be able to put Barraskewda in range of that Psychic. So we're just kind of looking at where we can get those kind of last bits of chip in. As Draco Meteor comes out, does big damage, but Pex is able to just eat it and recover, and now you're there with your even weakened special attack now.
Yeah, that ended up being a really nice play on the Kingler's part. You know, he knows that if I click that Draco, then and he KOs, that might be nice for him, but it doesn't sort of solve the long-term game of the Toxapex being so weak at that point. So instead, he chooses to just wait it out, just sort of let me weaken myself and then deal with the consequences. And so that's going to be a really nice play on his part that costs me here in the next few turns.
Yeah, we're gonna see going there. You're kind of uh basically where you were with the Scizor switching out. You've got a decently healthy Toxapex, and you can't stay in on it. We're going to see going out to the Diancie now. Icy Wind coming out, not going to do much of anything to it. You know, a Toxic there would have been... it would have been a heck of a prediction. You know, kind of looking at it in hindsight, you know, let me see, what did the... Draco did 75 before, so yeah, I don't know if you survived two more of those. Obviously you survived at least one more. Potentially Toxic it, KO there. But yeah, you would be low. Just recover stalling, you know, would be good, but this Diancie, short of Toxic, you don't have a whole lot for it right now. And it's got the Reflect, which is going to neuter that Barraskewda and gives the Corviknights here looking like a very nice position.
Yeah, exactly. The reflect here is a nice place to be in. I mean, I figure the toxic is coming out at some point. It's a matter of when. I'm thinking about using up the Toxapex's recovers at some point just to get rid of those so it can be less of a thorn in my side. Because, yeah, this Diancie not doing a whole lot to that Toxapex. The Scissor not doing a whole lot to that Toxapex. The Regidrago not having enough left in the tank to consistently do anything against that Toxapex. So really, really a tough spot, but also one that feels like I can still work with it.
Yep. So getting up that Reflect, trading that for the Toxic, that is big for kind of both sides. It's going to give you some chances against that Barraskewda, but also Toxic was really their only way to beat this Diancie. Of course, you have that Terra still into water to resist the Barraskewda moves, potentially get those defense boosts with Diamond Storm, and of course we know that this Hex isn't doing much offensively of anything except Toxic stalling. So they definitely needed that Toxic, but the Reflect is going to be very nice for you here as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep. both things, pretty reasonable choices for each team.
Yep. Diamond Storm getting the defense boost as we see the acid spray come out, however, blocked by the clear body, not getting the special defense drop. So we're just playing a waiting game here. These Pokemon not really able to do much of anything to each other. A timely Icy Wind on Valiant or Drago switching in would be huge. But we're kind of just getting a little bit of mind games here of this kind of Diancie versus Toxapex.
Yeah, there's no way the Valiant or Regidrago are coming in here. They are too valuable for the actual damage that they can output against both the Toxapex and the Barraskewda. So this is going to be a lot of back and forth between the Diancie and the Scizor, maybe trying to threaten out the Toxapex. But really, something is going to have to die before a threat can actually come in and make progress.
Yep. We are going to see a little bit of shimmying around, though. Scizor coming in on the recover, you turning out into the Diancie again. Icy Wind still not doing much of anything. A little bit of lefties, a little bit of toxic. Diamond Storm missing, not a big deal. Acid Spray still not doing much of anything. And, we're really at this point, we got the Reflect there. Pretty much we're just waiting for the Diancie to die, basically, to get a free switch into something. Scizor here managing the Toxic a little bit on the Diancie, because we are going to see you come back in, and here, I believe this is the final time the Diancie is in. Another missed Diamond Storm, not a huge deal. And you're going to then take some damage there. One more Icy Wind, one more Diamond Storm, and Toxic, and then here, excellently timed, Reflect goes down, set up a fresh Reflect as Toxic takes out Diancie, gets you a free switch there into Regidrago. That was a lot of turns going by, but how carefully were you managing that Reflect, or was that just kind of a nice little coincidence there? That's just the way you switched in and out, managing that Toxic perfectly.
Yeah, I think the second time I switched out the Diancie, I was thinking about trying to line things up with the Reflect. One turnout was too many to, or the first switch out was just trying to stall out some of the uh, toxic damage, and also trying to get a little bit of 100% accurate chip on the Toxapex rather than this Diamond Storm that just didn't seem to want to hit for me.
Yep. All right. Well, we see you finally get that switch into Regidrago again. Interesting. Again, we know that this doesn't have that much for the Toxapex. You are going to Terra Steel here. Go for the Earth Power. Does a little under half, but you get the special defense drop as it recovers, and that special defense drop is huge for this. That means you're actually going to be able to beat it and wear it down, rather than it be able to take you out with a couple Icy Winds. Maybe not even one Icy Wind.
No, one Icy Wind does not get the KO here with that Terra Steel. And that Earth Power is actually pretty consistent. A lot more PP than, or not more PP, but I guess it's not dropping my Spatak like the Draco would. So it's seeming like this is going to be the way to wear down this Toxapex.
Yep, and actually looking at it, Icy Wind, two Icy Winds also don't KO you.
Yeah, that Icy Wind does not hit hard, it turns out.
So the special defense drop probably pretty influential, but I'm not sure how influential it actually is. Would need time to get 3 Icy Winds to KO you. It only has 2 recovers left. You've got the chance of the special defense drop. You've got a chance of a crit on all of these. Not sure if the Pex actually would have been able to outlast this Drago and what shape it would have been in afterwards. But we are going to see recover. Now with the weakened special defense, Icy Wind going to come out and miss. And now out into the Barraskewda, who is going to live the Earth Power, but is now very weak, which is very nice for that Iron Valiant. So kind of how are you thinking about things here now?
That felt like the end game right there. Was getting that extra damage on that Barraskewda. It's just going to be a question of how many. To me, at least, it feels like a question of how many mon I'm going to end up with left. Uh, after this, Barraskewda has his chances to do something.
Yep. We are going to see going out into the Scizor, Terraflying just for style points, does a little bit of damage, and then Aquajet, this time getting his own roughly 63% chance to get the KO there. Valiant comes out, Psychic into the Toxapex, gonna do plenty of damage to two-shot it here. Then Barraskewda outsped by the Scarfed Iron Valiant. Liquidation just a little bit outside of even a potential KO range from the liquidation. Uh, so pretty close there at the end. I'd say that you played a great game. Managed a lot of things very well. But that it did come down to I think you were in control the whole time, but boy, it did seem way closer than I think we all expected it to be.
Yeah, it really did. I mean, this is props to the Kinglers, especially for managing this tough situation that they found themselves in, really putting in some good improvisation on the fly and understanding what roles their Mon would play in this matchup that they really didn't expect to happen. So definitely extremely well played by the Kinglers to put this to be in such a close spot. I can only think of the different ways that it could have gone wrong had they prepared for the actual team that I was bringing and played it a little bit differently. So I'm very impressed with their play. I throughout the match did feel like I was in control, except for that Toxapex. That thing really took a chunk out of the team. There was a lot of joking around about how the Kinglers got that for one Whoop buck in the auction, and it still managed to wreak such havoc on my team.
Yeah, no, it is a terrifying mon, and we talk about seriously amazing job by the Kinglers playing this well against the top ranked team with a team they didn't even prep for them. Um, Absolutely incredible. And I have to think if that Toxapex had, like instead of that Icy Wind, if it just even had a weak water, like chilling water, if it had
Mm-hmm.
that, if it had Protect, if it had Sludge Bomb, I think just one more effective move on that Toxapex could have gotten them the win here. Really well played by them. That Toxapex showing why everyone hates it so much. And just really a great match overall to see, kind of drawn out here, and just kind of excellent management of their resources by both teams.
Yeah, absolutely. This was a blast to be a part of and had a really great time. It was a real marathon of a match too. It's hard to get a scope of the real time from watching the replay, but I think this was an hour and 15 minutes, an hour and a half, something like that of real time, and you're spending the whole time running the calcs and thinking about your win cons and doing all of this. I was wiped by the end of this match. It was a really good time.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for joining me here today. Thanks for the great match. Thanks to all of you at home for watching and sticking with us through this. When I have a co-host, it gets long. I apologize for that, but I hope you enjoyed it. Please do all of the YouTube things, the liking, the comment, the subscribes, any of that stuff that you feel like doing, please go ahead and do it. Thank you once again to my co-host, Greggles here, coach of the Calgary Corviknights, and I will see you all next week for another feature match here.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I really enjoyed this chance to talk about this stuff. I'm a little new to this Pokemon draft league, but I am learning a lot and really enjoying the opportunity to talk about some of the things that I'm learning as I'm going throughout this.
Yeah, well, we've certainly been enjoying having you with the league. So, well, until next time, everybody, see ya.